Welcome, everybody, to wisetake.com MMA DFS podcast. I'm your host, Jeff, aka Wigsplitter. Today, we'll be going over UFC Fight Night 119, Brunson versus Machida. But before we get into that, if you're not already a subscriber, head on over to wisetake.com and sign up, and you'll receive access to premium articles covering NBA, NFL, MMA. And don't forget to head on over to Twitter and follow me at JEFPO and follow us at wise_take. Now, before we get into UFC Fight Night 119, let's go over the previous card. UFC Fight Night 118, Cerrone versus Till in Gdansk, Poland. If we were doing straight pick'ems, I was 7-4. I picked a couple underdogs, Salim Tuhari and Nasran Hakarast. Both those guys, Tuhari was making his debut going up against Alves, who's he's an animal, but Tuhari from his video looked like he was a capable fighter. And then I was not expecting Jan Blachowicz to do a standing guillotine choke finish of Devin Clark. 7-4 isn't bad. Looking to improve on that. I want to hopefully go 11-0 or 10-1. Always strive for excellence. All right, let's get into UFC Fight Night 119, Brunson versus Machida. The first fight on the early prelims is Marcelo Ghom versus Christian Colombo. Ghom is 8,800 salaries, minus 175 favorite according to Vegas. Colombo is 7,400 salary, plus 155. Ghom is, from the video I've seen, he's a young guy. Knockout power, vicious ground and pound, but he has his opponents that he's fought to compile his record have a combined record of 2-10. But with the heavyweight division, it's very thin with talent. So this guy's making his UFC debut. It's possible he could come in. He could either flounder under the pressure or he's going to thrive. He's going up against Christian Colombo, who's 37 years old. He's 0-1-1 in the UFC. To me, he looks slow, tentative with the strikes. I don't know. I mean, I want to see how he looks after weigh-ins. But in a roster build, I could see possibly taking Ghom. But I just want. I mean, there's so many different options when it comes to building your rosters. So if you're building one roster, I'm not sure if I would gamble on Ghom, but it's up to you. Let's move on to the next fight. Davidson Figueredo versus Jared the Monkey God Brooks. Both of these guys are undefeated fighters. Figueredo is 7,300 salary, plus 160 underdog, and Brooks is 8,900 salary, minus 185 favorite. Now, Brooks is a frenetic fighter. I mean, this dude, he reminds me of a cleaner Clay Guida. Just always moving, very aggressive with his takedowns. Right now, he averages 5 takedowns per fight with a small sample size and 2 significant strikes per minute. Things that you always look for when you're building your rosters, you're looking for guys that have takedowns. Takedowns equal points. Passes equal points. Significant strikes or points. Figueredo is on the same level. 3 takedowns per fight. Almost 2 strikes per minute. So Figueredo is an orthodox fighter. Throws heavy punches. Will stand and bang, but at the same time, he will try to take his opponent down, or if he's taken down, he'll look for a pass and then look for some ground and pound. I like both these guys. It's a pick 'em. The odds are close. I mean, I'm not saying that they're completely evenly matched, but when it comes to roster building, it's possible that both these guys could fit in. It just depends on the price and if you're willing to take that chance on Figueredo being the underdog. Moving on to the next fight, we have Cochran Diaz versus Jared Flash Gordon. Diaz is 3-4 in the UFC. His salary is 7,800. He's a plus 145 underdog. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Currently, he's on a 2-fight losing skid. Very good takedown defense. Averages nearly 3 takedowns per fight, 2 strikes per minute. These are the things you look at when you're building your roster: strikes per minute, takedowns, passes, submissions, knockouts. How fast are they knocking people out? How fast are they submitting guys? Now, Jared Flash Gordon is a very busy fighter. He's a former Cage Fury champion, featherweight champion. He has his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. If you take into context his fights outside of the UFC, he's currently riding a 4-fight win streak, and he also won his debut by knockout. He averages 6 takedowns per fight, and he has 7 significant strikes per minute. So points. When you're building your roster, the things you have to consider. I like both these guys. I'm leaning more towards Gordon in the roster build, but do a little more research. The eye test tells me that it's not going to be as clear of a victory for Gordon, so it's possible that you never know that their grappling skills could negate each other, and it could being a stand-up battle, which it could favor Gordon as well because he is a more active striker. All right, now moving on to the next fight on the FS2 prelims, we have Zaleski dos Santos going up against Max Payne Griffin. Zaleski dos Santos is 9,000 salary. He's a minus 210 favorite. Very unique striker. He has spinning back fist. He's a spinning kicks, wide variety of kicks. 2-time fight of the night bonus winner. Averages 4 strikes per minute, but at the same time he absorbs 3 strikes per minute. So that sort of tends to worry me. Both these guys have heavy hands. Max Payne Griffin is a very decorated amateur fighter. He's fighting out of Marinoble's fighting system. He's a Reno Combat 170-pound champ, West Coast Fighting Championship champ at 170 and 185 pounds. He's very athletic, and he has insane knockout power. He's finished outside of the UFC, plus his last fight. He's finished his 5 opponents in less than a minute. So this has fight of the night bonus written all over it as well. I want to do a little more research on video on both these fighters, but I do like Max Griffin for some salary relief plus the upside of the knockout. So moving on to the next fight, we have Antonio Carlos Jr. Cara de Zapato, which translate to shoe face or something like that, going up against Jack the Hammer Marshman. Antonio Carlos Jr. is 9,200 salary, minus 400 favorite. Marshman is 7,000 salary, plus 325 underdog. Carlos Jr. is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I'd say he's a world-class grappler with some insane, slick submission skills. Couple that with some powerful strikes. Once he takes you down, he's going to ground and pound you. If it stays standing, he has really heavy leg kicks. Going up against Jack Marshman, 2-1 in the UFC. He's a boxer by trade. He likes to stand and bang. Grappling, from what I've seen, he's okay. He does average 4 strikes per minute. So he's a lot more active, but he does absorb almost 5 strikes per minute. So he's prone to getting hit, but he hits a lot too. Salary-wise, Carlos Jr. is pretty high up there, and he's 10. I'm not sure which Antonio Carlos Jr. will show up for the fight. Hopefully the one that wins. But with that price range, I'd have to really consider my roster build, and I don't want to have too many punts when I'm building. Um, so with that being said, let's move on to the next fight. We have Vicente Lucca versus Nico Price. Nico Price is 10-0-0. He has one no contest. He's 7,700 salary plus 110 underdog going up against Vicente Lucca. 11-6-1, 8,500 salary minus 130 favorite. Lucca is a very durable fighter. Very slick submission skills, good takedowns. He has averaged 2 takedowns per fight. He's a slightly above average significant strikes, 2.51 strikes per minute. He doesn't necessarily absorb a lot of strikes. Going up against Nico Price, who has 2.4 strikes per minute. He absorbs 3.57 strikes. He technically would be riding a 3-fight winning streak, except for his last KO victory over Alex Morono was switched to a no contest because of a failed drug test. But he's very powerful, and he has solid takedowns. He only averages 1 takedown per fight, but at the same time, he's pretty much knocking people out. And Lucca, on the other hand, is very slick when it comes to his submission game. So this one, I'm still sort of wavering on who I like in the match. Lucca, I think I'm favored just because of his jiu-jitsu and his durability. I think he might be able to get in close, take the fight to the ground, and possibly look for a submission. But at the same time, if it stays standing, Nico Price has the power to, put the lights out. And at 7,700 salary, it's possible I might take a flyer on him just for the salary relief. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the main card. We have John Lineker versus John Hands of Stone Lineker going up against Marlon Chito Vera. Lineker is a long time. He's been in the UFC a long time. He's got a lot of fights. He's 29-8. 9,400 in salary. He's a minus 500 favorite going up against Chito Vera, who's 10-3-0. 6,800 salaries plus 400 underdog. And the main reason is Lineker is one of those guys that he's just right on the edge of he's always he's getting there to where he's gonna fight possibly fight for the belt. He has unbelievable power for the bantamweight division. He's probably looked to keep the fight standing. He averages 5 strikes per minute. He does absorb a lot of hits. I don't see Chito Vera necessarily having the power to knock out Lineker, but at the same time, he does have a TKO victory, but it was over an aging Brad Pickett. Chito Vera has a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, very slick submission guy. I would like putting Lineker in my lineup, but at 9,400, it sort of straps you down and makes you decide on where your punt's going to be at and how much of a risk you're going to take. Moving on to the next fight, we have Thiago Santos, this fight actually intrigues me a lot. Thiago Santos de Lima Mareta versus Jack the Joker Hermanson. Thiago Santos is 7,900 salary plus 115 underdog going up against Hermanson. He's 8,300 salary minus 135 favorite. Both these guys, honestly, this fight has fight of the night written all over it because both of them are going to look to finish. Santos has a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a Muay Thai striker. He has flashy strikes. He has spinning kicks. Hermanson is a striker / grappler, 3-1 in the UFC. Very aggressive with his takedowns, which leads to vicious ground and pound. very active striker, almost 6 strikes per minute, 2 takedowns per fight. Santos is almost 4 strikes per minute and only a half of a takedown per fight, but he has unbelievable takedown defense. So it's possible that this fight stays standing and one of these guys goes to sleep. So depending on who you feel is going to be the guy going to sleep is the guy you want to put in your lineup, not put in your lineup. I'm going to have to look more into it, but we'll see how the weigh-ins go, and I also want to see what the Vegas line moves towards the end of the day on Friday. All right, moving on to another possible fight of the night contender would be Francisco Trinaldo versus Jim Miller. Trinaldo is 8,600 salary, minus 200 favorite, going up against Miller. 7,600 salary, plus 170 underdog. Now, both these guys have been in the UFC a long time. Trinaldo has 15 fights. He's 11-4 in the UFC. Solid power, average takedowns. He likes smothering his opponents with just overall aggressiveness. Miller, he's been through some battles with some of the biggest names in the division. And I'm worried that maybe some of that plus age is catching up to him and he might be losing a little bit of a step. But he's 17-9 in the UFC. Averages 2 takedowns per fight, 2.77 strikes per minute. Trinaldo, on the other hand, is 3.34 strikes per minute and 1 takedown per fight. Trinaldo has the better takedown defense, and if Miller tries to come in and shoot, it's a possibility that he gets stuffed, the fight stays standing, and it turns into a striking battle, which I think possibly could, favor Trinaldo. But I like both these fighters. I'm leaning more towards Trinaldo in a roster build. Let's move on to the next fight. We have Pedro Munoz versus Rob Font. Both these guys are, Munoz is ranked 12 and Font is ranked 13. Both of them are 4. Munoz is 4-2 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He's got a BJJ black belt, very good submission skills. He averages 4 strikes per minute and 1.5 takedowns per fight. Now Rob Font is 4-1 in the UFC. Very technical striker, solid power, currently riding a 2-fight win streak, well-rounded when it comes to his knowledge of MMA. He averages 5 strikes per minute and 1.5 takedowns per fight. He does have the KO power, and he'll probably want to keep the fight standing. His takedown defense is lacking, though. A little on the lower end. So it's possible that Munoz could take him down and just backpack him. And with Munoz's salary at $7,500, that's a possibility. And we'll have to you'll have to sign up for the premium content to figure out who I'm choosing after all it's said and done. Let's move on to the next fight. We have Demian Maia versus Colby Covington. Colby Covington is a grappler. He's 12-1 and 0. He's 8,200 salary, is a minus 130 favorite. Maia is 8,000 salary, plus 110. Now, this is a very intriguing fight. To the casual MMA fan, this is something where if you have your brother-in-law over and he knows who Conor McGregor is, he's probably going to look at this fight as it's going on and go, wow, this is boring. But the technical aspect of this is going to be basically wrestling versus grappling, wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. Now, Colby Covington is insane with his takedowns. He averages 7 takedowns per fight. Over his last 4 fights, he has 31 takedowns. He also averages 2.6 strikes per minute. He's been working on his striking, but I think his wrestling will probably be key. Demian Maia is a world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert. He averages almost 3 takedowns per fight, 2 strikes per minute. Doesn't necessarily absorb a lot of damage. This could be just a grappling match, and whoever it's either going to be Maia on Covington's back, looking for the rear naked, or transitioning to maybe an armbar, a Kimura, or an omoplata, some type of submission victory, or it could be Covington just laying and praying, trying to take Maia down, or stuffing Maia's takedowns, and it just sort of turns into a stalemate on the feet. Which both fighters, their strikers aren't necessarily like electric, unless Covington's been doing something different in the past, in his recent training. I don't really see it going that way. I think it's going to be more of a grappling match. So you got to think of takedowns, passes. Those are all points, submissions, significant strikes from ground and pound, all that fun stuff. Roster building. Both these guys are pretty evenly when it comes to salary. So it's possible, depending on how the roster builds and who I feel is going to win the match, is they might go into my roster build. Moving on to the main events, we have Derek Brunson going against Lyoto the Dragon Machida. Now, Brunson is 17-5-0 in the UFC. He's 8,400 salary. He's a minus 160 favorite. Going up against Machida is 22-7-0, 7,800 salary, plus 140 underdog. Now, just by name, you wouldn't necessarily consider Machida as an underdog, but he is coming off. He is coming off of an 18-month suspension for a admitted positive test. He basically called, it wasn't USADA, it was WADA, and told them that he feels that he may have taken a tainted supplement or something like that, and they ended up suspending him for 18 months. Now, keep in mind, though, he is coming off of 2 losses, and he had a very horrible loss and it just looked bad. I mean, he didn't look like Lyoto Machida, but at the same time, Derek Brunson is he's a grappler / striker. He's 11-4 in the UFC. Athletic wrestler with solid power, but he is tentative with his striking. And if he tries to come in, Lyoto Machida is a notorious counter striker. He's 14-7 in the UFC. He averages 2.63 strikes per minute. Doesn't really get hit a lot because he is a counter striker, and he has very fluid movement on his feet because of his karate type style. He has very solid takedown defense. Brunson has 100% takedown defense, and he averages 3 takedowns per fight, and he averages 3 significant strikes per minute. Now, this fight, it's very intriguing. I'm interested in watching this fight, but I'm not sure if I want to put either of these guys on my roster just because of not knowing who or which fighter is going to show up. Is it going to the PED suspension Lyoto Machida, where he just dominated, most of the division, or is it going to be the tentative Derek Brunson who's going to look to, maybe shoot for a takedown or calling from the outside as he's, going around the octagon? Not really sure on this fight. How I want to see how the line movement goes. I want to see how the weight cut goes, especially for both these guys. But with that being said, that was UFC Fight Night 119. Brunson versus Machida. As always, be safe out there, guys, and have fun.
Yes.